Good morning, ladies. Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is David Theus, and welcome to yet another episode, our 11th episode of the Saturday morning coaching call. And we are on the platform of the Small Business Patriots. So if you're watching us today on YouTube, please like and share, assuming that you like it. Like and share, and better yet, subscribe. We're trying to build a subscriber base as well. And if you're coming to us via a audio file in the podcast format on Spotify, there's a whole bunch of things. We're not on Apple, but Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, all kinds of good things. Give us a thumbs up, like and share, and share with a friend or a fellow business owner. So the format real quick, for those of you that might be new to the show, and this is a developing thing as we go, but we're getting it down, I think, aren't we, ladies? We're getting a pretty good handle on this thing. Basically, I bill myself as a small business consultant, self-employed for 30 plus years, or a coach. Some people say coach, but whatever you want to call me. These ladies are a member of an organization we have here in Florida. It's called the Northeast Florida Business Alliance. And that's the sidebar. But the reality is they get to come, we all get to join together on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. Today is April 2nd, by the way. And bring questions to the table. So the best part about this episode, or the best part about this format, is not only do I get to hear the questions and answer, but other members are in the group that may have experienced something similar to the person's asking a question about, and they will be able to weigh in with their expertise. And so I let the folks have the floor, and then I get to wrap up with a closing thought about each question or each comment and share my thoughts. And so I think there's a win-win for all of us in the room to be experiencing some expertise, a chance to learn, to gain some knowledge, and share some knowledge and share some expertise with each other. So it's a format that's working. We love it. And I think it's going to grow legs, as I like to say. And again, if you like this, please share it, and I'll shut up so we can get moving. You don't want to hear much more about Dave. So in the pre-show, we drew straws. Oh, by the way, our guests today are Carrie Farmer, and I'll let each one of you tell us a little about your company. And then Pegy Lynch is with us today as well. And I'm David Theus again. And so if you don't mind, let me, Carrie, if you'll go first, at least introduce yourself. Tell us who your company is, and just a little blurb about what you do. And then Peggy, you'll do the same thing. And then I think Peggy's got the first question today, but we'll let you go on the heels of your introduction. So Carrie, if you'll introduce yourself first and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, sure. My name is Carrie Farmer. My husband, Brad, and I own Farmers Heating and Cooling Solutions in Clay County. We're a small business that has just been in business probably about 9 months now. And we just like serving our community that we grew up in, and just continuing forming those relationships with our customers, and just being a helpful part of our community that we have.
And the name of your firm one more time?
Farmers Heating and Cooling Solutions.
Very good. Awesome. Well, welcome. Good morning. And thanks for coming back.
I'm glad to be here.
Peggy, if you'll go ahead and do the same thing. And then you can, when you're finished with that, you can hit us with your first question.
Okay, so I'm Pegy Lynch with 21K Promotions, and the unofficial description or name for what I provide or offer is tchotchkes. The more professional name is branded merchandise. So I work with any size business, organization, individuals, whatever, and helping them brand their merchandise and get their message out to potential customers and so forth. So with that, I'm an independent, of course, have my own business, and my question is about business insurance, because I really am not familiar with it. And it seems to me that there's an insurance out there that would help business owners in the case that they have an injury and, they're limited as to what they can do in their job.
Okay. Carrie, do you have any insight you want to share, or?
We're pretty new to this as well, or we are pretty new to this. We do have several insurances for our business that we just have, And so we are learning all the different ones that we could have and maybe should have that are added on to the minimum. But that's kind of a, I don't know, a question that I'm not very familiar in answering because I had to go to expertise on my own. So, but yeah, it's definitely a great question. I'm excited to kind of hear and make sure that, you know, some things that maybe I need to be adding to mine as well.
Okay, fair answer and a sound answer. So a disclaimer is needed, first of all. After spending 13 years in the financial services in what I call an advisory role, I was not a financial advisor per the American College, for those of you that might be listening to understand that. I was what they call a registered representative, which means I'm licensed to sell and represent securities, mutual funds, and that sort of thing, but also a life insurance agent, life and health agent, and annuities. Anyway, so I just want to get that portion out. My first knee-jerk reaction to this question is, and since I'm not in that business anymore, I would not bill myself as an expert. My first response would be seek out a sound financial advisor who can give you some information on the protection. This is what we call the protection side of the business versus the wealth building side of the business, and seek out some sound guidance. If you don't know someone, I'd be more than happy to recommend 3 people to you to investigate. But I believe that each of us as business owners should have what I call the 3-legged stool. We should have a great working relationship with our CPA, certified public accountant. We should find a business attorney, and where each one of you are in your business cycle, meaning how small or large the organization is. There are attorneys that custom fit tailored solutions to each growth cycle of a business, from a one person proprietorship all the way up to a multi-million-dollar organization. So seek out a business attorney that knows best your field of business, even the industry that you're working in. Excuse me. And lastly, a financial advisor, and not just a financial advisor that hangs a shingle and says, I know money, but someone who has either they're small business people as well, but someone who has a handle on what's going on in the business community and the challenges that meet each one of us as small business people. So the 3-legged stool is a CPA, probably your most interactive person you'll deal with, and then your financial advisor, and then your business attorney, always on speed dial in case you need to run something by. Okay. Having said that, yes, Peggy, there is you could almost say there's an insurance policy for everything. And it reminds me of that movie Groundhog Day. Remember when Bill Murray kept meeting the guy with the life insurance in the beginning of the day, and he'd be like, okay, enough of this. None of us in the insurance, well, I don't know, some of us probably wanted to be, but that is a great representation of what a life insurance guy looks like, you know, kind of a slapstick funny approach, but none of us want to do that role. But there is a business insurance owner expense policy. And let me break it down what it means. So let's say you own a business, and I think I know where this question is coming from, Peggy, which it may not be applicable to you, but you own a business, and let's say you've got employees, and you have maybe a shop or a warehouse, you know, a building that you pay rent or pay a mortgage on. And you've got some owner expenses, meaning labor costs, salaries, you've got utilities, electric, you know, water, you've got rent or lease payments or mortgage payments that go directly to the owner's expense of running the business. And let's say that owner gets injured and can't necessarily, it doesn't mean they can't come to work, but they can't operate at the functionality that they need to be as highly functional as they would be. And an owner of a small business like that, or even a large business, is pretty important to the business's success, because their brain power, their will, their leadership, all those things go into the running and success of an organization, of a company. And so if that person, man or woman, goes down to some illness or injury, and I've actually run into situations like this in my practice where, you know, it's a horrible thing to think about, but one of my clients had leukemia. And you can imagine the treatment that person must have gone through. I mean, going to work was the last thing they wanted to do. And fortunately, the treatments worked, and they're in remission, and things work, but they were out of work at any given time for over 6 months to a year. And so when that happens, the business could flounder, the business could go down. So this particular disability policy insures the insured against the risk that if they go down, if the owner operator is incapacitated in some form or fashion, then the policy, after a waiting period, if you will, what do we call that? Anyway, after a certain amount of time, then it'll kick in and pay the business owner's expenses. And so it'll pay the salaries to keep the people, earning their income. It'll pay the lights, the water, utilities, and the lease payments. It will not pay the owner. And so the belief is, look, we're not trying to enrich you and build your estate now that you're injured. We want to keep your business alive. And so when the actuaries do the risk, they take all that into consideration about what is the risk of the business expense carrying forward, and how are we going to structure a policy and a premium to support that. So great question. There is a product out there. Very few people know about it. And I didn't do a lot of disability work. I did some. I can honestly say I never closed or sold a policy, even though this particular person, I think he came to the table with a policy before I got to him that insured him against this event, and he was able to keep his business afloat for that 6 month to a year cycle. But very much so, when we do our needs analysis as advisors, it's something to consider. And there should be a question your people are asking you: what are your thoughts? And what I'd like to do, Peggy, is push it back to you to put this in a real life perspective. None of us, I always told my clients this: you're going to do two things for certain. You're going to pay taxes, and you're going to die. And I would point blank, I would put to him and say, do you know anyone that hasn't died yet? I mean, I haven't. Maybe you know if someone hasn't died. So those are things we can put our head around, that you're going to pay taxes and you're going to die. And so the typical response to that is we need to protect those things. When you start asking people, are you going to get hurt, or are you going to get sick in a situation that you may not be able to come to work for 6 weeks, a week, 10 days, 6 months, 10 months? Their typical response is, no, I'm healthy. I hadn't been sick in a day. I'm as strong as a buck, and I can give you countless, one thing that always comes to mind: these two brothers, they were twins, and they were business partners, and they strapping 50-something-year-old, great shape, just incredible specimens of shape. And they went to play golf one day. And so this was a long-term care scenario that I was working with. And fortunately, we covered them about 6 weeks before the problem happened. And lo and behold, he's putting his golf bag, in the back of his car after a round of golf, and he stepped on a golf ball in the parking lot. Some of us have done that before, and it kind of trips you up. But he stepped on the golf ball, and it was right adjacent to one of those concrete parking stops. And so when he went to recover from the fall, he compounded it with stepping on that monument, that concrete thing that's about 6 inches off the ground, lost his footing and went down and broke his left hip, and put him out of work. And he had to go to long-term care. It fractured his hip, and it fractured that ball joint situation. And so he incurred long-term care recovery, or short-term care recovery, to about 8 months. 8-9 months. And thank God, at 50-something years old, we had put a long-term care policy in place, and he was able to exercise it, use it, and protect his assets from that event. So none of us think about that side of the business, or that side of life happening, that we may be injured. And then the next thing, Carrie, to your point earlier, is we have to prioritize. You can literally go out. I liken it to playing roulette. You can put $1 on every square on roulette. I think there's 37, maybe 35. Yeah, 37, 35 plus the 00 and the 0. Not that I've ever played that game before, but you can cover every opportunity. You know what I mean? So it's a 35-to-1 odds of winning. So if you put $1 on every square, you're going to win but you put $35 down or $37 down, you're going to win 35 bucks. So you can do that with insurance. You can buy every insurance policy that comes down the pipe. But the reality is you've got to prioritize not only in your spending, but you've got to look at the risk analysis and say, okay, this risk is highly probable and it's got catastrophe written all over it. So we always try to tell our customers what we're trying to do is eliminate or at least mitigate the highest probable risk that's going to give you the most catastrophic event. You know, homeowners insurance, mortgage companies want you to do it because they're at risk. But if you have a fire, albeit you don't think about that happening, but it's going to be a big risk, $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 worth of damage. I think I might get some homeowners insurance to mitigate that risk. So does that help as far as prioritizing? I'm gonna come back to you in a second, Peggy, but that's what we have to do as business owners. We can't insure away everything, but we have to prioritize those. What could be the highly probable event at the most catastrophic event? That's what we want to put our insurance dollars against. Okay, so Peggy, if you don't mind, you've had a recent event happen to you, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Yeah, okay. Don't give us all the details, but what I want to get to is there's a whatever happened to you. You broke your arm, but how much time did that take out of what you do? I mean, give us a kind of a walk in the day of Peggy. What did it do to you?
Oh my goodness. It doesn't, you see a simple cast on my arm, and yeah, there was some pain involved for a few days, and I still have pain in the arm, and my full back is in and out of severe pain. So I don't have a clue as to when that pain is going to end. But in the meantime, it takes a toll on you emotionally, mentally, and as a business owner, you start every day with a certain amount of drive and momentum, and you've got all these projects in front of you, and you're going to accomplish it and be efficient and so forth. Well, if a lot of your time in your business is spent communicating via text messages or emails and things on that order, or creating reports and presentations, you're typing. Well, I've lost the use of my dominant hand. So now my voice text messages that are coming through really look silly sometimes, I'm sure. And again, it really takes an emotional toll, because it becomes frustrating that you can't function the way you used to. And that's what made me think about business insurance, of course, after the fact, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Carrie, do you have anything that you want to expand on or think about that's brought a thought to mind?
Not really. I mean, I know that as our business goes through, there's so many things that could happen in a day. And this is really, made me think ahead, just like earlier this week, I was out of the office and working and easily could have gotten injured, but you don't think about that. Like David, you were saying, you can plan for certain things, but then you don't realize, you take for granted, I guess, your health, and that you're able to do all the things you're able to do until something happens. And then you don't realize how much it will affect your business in your daily routine. So definitely something that I need to kind of prioritize and start thinking about,
So not to scare you, and to go back to the prioritization schedule, if you will. I kind of hesitate to do this, but because each one of us, especially in the industry I came out of, can give you a litany of examples. The guy stepping on the golf ball. I'm going to say this. I'm sorry, Carrie, but I have a friend at church, in fact, and about 4 years ago, an older gentleman, and he has no business on being up on a ladder to hang Christmas lights. And so he hired an electrician friend of his, and said, look, I can't do this. Would you mind coming over and helping me out? Well, it really wasn't in the wheelhouse of the electrician to do that, but other than the fact he was hanging electric lights. But he said, sure, I'll take care of that for you. And so he came over and got the ladder out and started hanging lights. Well, lo and behold, he slipped on the ladder, and not to be gross and gruesome, but you can imagine one of his left leg went through the rung, and on the way down, damn near tore his leg off. And so by the time he made it out of the ladder and down to the ground, 15, 20 feet off the ground, he was in bad shape, real bad shape. And so, the conversation was like, oh crap. And the fellow that hired him is well heeled, shall we say. And so in my mind, as an insurance guy, I quickly went to, God, I hope you got some homeowners insurance, or I hope do you have an umbrella policy, for example? That's an umbrella policy. It doesn't cover our businesses per se, but if you own a home and someone comes to your house for a Christmas party and slips and falls and knocks their head on, they're going to sue your homeowner's insurance, and an umbrella may cover things that the homeowners doesn't. And so he said, yeah, we do, but I've offered to offset his medical bills, well, now that guy's out of work. He can't go to work with a broken left side of his body. And how long will it take him to heal? And how long will it take him to get up and running? And if he has what we call short-term disability or long-term disability, he's got an elimination period. That's the word I was looking for. Elimination period, probably of 90 days. That's the thing that designates between short-term and long-term. The assumption is for 90 days, your health insurance is going to pick up the coverage. And after 90 days, what happens to you after that? That's the elimination period. So, yeah, and I don't want to make this call a Debbie Downer, but there are some catastrophic events that could happen to us. And the other side of this is I don't want to live life, sheltered and, oh my God, I'm afraid. We can't do that either, but it's just common sense. And I would, Carrie, I know you guys are starting out, but just as, I would be remiss if I didn't say it. I know you're doing this, but have those conversations with your advisor and say, look, this is the kind of activity that we're involved in. Understanding that we don't have money to pay for every aspect of our, catastrophic lives, but let's put together a schedule of priorities that maybe we need to investigate, and then maybe earmark a fraction of the cost to start covering some of those things. Anyway, that's a good question again, Peggy, and a good subject I think we need to be aware of as business people. And it's tough. As small business people, small business persons, so many small business owners start their business bootstrapped. I mean, they live. I'm sitting in a spare bedroom in my office, in my home office, and I've pretty much done this all my career. But you start off with next to nothing, and hopefully you build something and it continues to grow. But those origins start at the ground. And that leads me to a subject I want to talk about. Maybe I'll do with a close. But what else? Did this conversation spark anything else?
I'm rather glad that we did talk about it, because anybody that's going to view this episode might take sit back and think, oh my goodness, I need to start looking at this, because you don't expect, you just go on with your lives and your business and so forth, and you're just not prepared for it. And so hopefully a lot of people will watch this episode and take heed.
Yeah, I know it's made me kind of rethink. Because when you're first starting out, I hate to say, it's kind of like the bare minimum. Like, what are we required to have was our first question as business owners, and that's really not the best question. It's kind of like what you said, David. You go in and explain your industry and what you're doing, and have that advisor kind of, like you say, give you some of those things because they've seen it. They've had more experience, dealing with things coming into them that they've seen that maybe new business owners haven't thought about, or new industry owners, they may just be starting out in something else. So that was some great advice. So it's definitely got my gears going.
Well, you start these things, a lot of it's on a prayer, and I'm a believer, a person of faith that believes that God ultimately knows what's best for me, and his plans for me are good and best.
Yes.
And in the event that something catastrophic happens, it's within his power and glory to keep me, keep me safe and keep me God forbid I die from something, I'm gonna get into a whole sermonette here, but I believe that he's got us ultimately. So we can't run around in fear is the point I'm trying to make. We can't
Correct.
run around, not leave the house because fear of something happening. But it is prudent. We should be prudent and mindful of the things that are going around us and not be, dare I say, ignorant to the things that could be happening, and while prioritizing, because this is the struggle, if you will, or the challenge as small business people is how do you fit it all in? How do you start a business, grow it, get it up and running, get some legs underneath it, and then, start covering these other things. Carrie, if you don't mind, I was noticing you've got something on your wall back there, and it looks like a message board of some description. What is that?
Yes. It is just something I came across actually online one day, and it just is some attributes of reminding the people we deal with, whether it be customers or really anybody that we come in contact with in our lives, how we should make them feel when they are in our presence. So it's just some attributes of, that they're respected and, loved and, cared for when they come in contact with us. And so that's just a reminder of how we want to, be represented towards our customers and our friends and family too. So I just liked it. I like trees. And so I like the message.
So an HVAC company with a mission to love and respect their customers. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That sounds applicable to something we can all apply, right, Peggy?
Absolutely.
Taking a little bit of a diversion now that I prompted that. But years ago, when I got out of college and got into the furniture business, my sister and I were partners in the state of Florida for manufacturers rep. And I quickly started making some money. And I learned that the more work I did, the more money I made, and I could gain some success. But I approached it with a very selfish approach, meaning that if I needed to step over you to get to where I wanted to go, that was probably what I was going to do. And the Lord has a way of showing us his plan versus our plan. And I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And so what he taught me was a very simple plan. If you love me, Lord, if you love me, God, with all your heart and soul and all your might, love me first. And then the second commandment, go out and love your neighbor. It's almost oversimplistic. It's almost too easy. And I don't know why I didn't pick this up earlier, because I was a selfish, self-centered turd, I guess. But it really does work. If you put others first and really demonstrate, not for a selfish gain or some sort of manipulative way of doing it, but just put your customers, your friends, your family first and love on them, then he's gonna respond and honor that. And so for you to have a mindful presence in your office as a reminder, that's pretty cool. When you're on the phone, maybe a customer is giving you the guff, they're not satisfied, and you can look up at that and say, okay, wait a minute, who's first here? Who am I serving? And that's good. I'm tickled to see that. That's pretty cool.
Well, I know, just from the first time, I met you through, Promote Clay Things, it was very forefront that you always say, it's the relationships with your customers and the people that you're around. And so we are wholeheartedly on that. And that's really what just kind of opened the door and made me realize about this group that we're in. Everybody pretty much has that as their standard. And so I appreciate that from you as well, as being one of your standards. So.
Thank you, first of all. And if it's okay with you, Peggy, I'll close up with one thought on the heels of what she just said. Is that okay with you?
Certainly.
Yes. That piece of the puzzle, the relationship piece, is the most difficult for people to comprehend, because albeit all of us want relationships, and I think if I asked anybody on the street, are other people important to you, they'd say, oh, of course they are. But when it comes to business, oftentimes we want instantaneous results. We want instantaneous gratification. I'm going to put forth the effort. I expect something in return. You know, return, ROI, return on investment. What is my return on investment? And better yet, how fast can I get it? The relationship piece that I talk about often with my folks like yourself and other folks in our organization, it's a long-standing investment. It takes time. It's like real estate. Real estate was supposed to be a long hold, buy and hold strategy. You know, now we're talking about, now we're flipping real estate, you know, get it today and sell it tomorrow. We're all backwards and upside down. And so I always told my two daughters that friends are like investments. You've got to put time, energy, money, even money sometimes, you know, go and buying someone to take them to the movies or whatever it is. They're investments, and they should be nurtured and cared for. And by the way, they're going to take some time to develop, because that whole empathy trust thing I talk about all the time, it takes time for them to for you to demonstrate empathy, for them to see it. They got to get through their selfish piece of it too and put the guard down. And then ultimately when the trust happens, that's when the business begets business. So I guess that's going to be my mantra. When they put on my tombstone, they'll say something about relationships maybe, but I just believe in it so much. And the good Lord was kind enough to show me that's important. And when he did so, it really changed my life. So having said that, here we are on Saturday morning. Peggy's in St. Johns County over across the river and the intercoastal in St. Augustine. Carrie, you're in Middleburg?
Yep.
And that's 40 minutes or 30 to 40 minutes west of me. And here I sit on the St. Johns River in Clay County and Fleming Island. And yet we're still carving out time for us to meet virtually here on Zoom on a Saturday morning to share our thoughts and our needs and concerns, and yet foster relationships. So it works. It takes time. It's not instant gratification, but when it does work, it really works. So I appreciate you ladies so much and the opportunity to be on this call together. And again, some housekeeping. If you like what you've heard today and you feel like you have a friend or fellow business owner that would benefit from knowing about this, please send them this link, whether it be on YouTube, on the Small Business Patriot, or you're listening to Spotify or another podcast platform that you might catch this episode. And until we meet again, ladies, have a blessed rest of your weekend and stay vigilant. We'll see you soon.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, guys.
Good to see you, Carrie.
Good seeing y'all.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.